Hey guys, what's going on? This is Calado, and I want to preface this video just by saying that the gymnastic style cartwheel that most people are familiar with is not necessarily the perfect cartwheel. It's the one that probably most of you have seen if you're looking into how to do a cartwheel, but it's by no means the only way to do a cartwheel. There are many different ways you can do it, and there's a lot of different ways to learn. So if you're looking to do cartwheels such as these, then pay close attention because I'm going to be going over several techniques that'll help you go from rolling around on the floor basically to doing an awesome, beautiful, big cartwheel with many different variations that you can include in your daily workouts, you can include in your movement practices, etc. So to make sure that everyone's on the same page, this is a gymnastic style cartwheel from the forward lunge position, and although this is probably the one you're most familiar with, we're going to be going over different training methods and variations of a Capoeira style cartwheel. So if you're an absolute beginner, this is going to be your starting point. A lot of people start in this position where they have a lot of fear about lifting their legs off the ground, and they are very timid about putting their hands on the floor. This is very common for a lot of people. So don't feel bad if this characterizes how you feel. So here's step one, guys. If you're an absolute beginner, you want to first start off just by getting comfortable putting your hands on the floor and kicking your legs up. For many people, this might be a big accomplishment, and that's awesome. This is your first step to doing a cartwheel. If you're already a little bit comfortable putting your hands on the ground and lifting your legs up, what you can try to do is move your body laterally instead of just forwards. Put one hand down on the ground first, kick your body up, put the second hand down, and then land with one leg. The bigger you can make this lateral movement, the better. And the higher up that you can get your feet off of the ground, the better as well. Your goal is eventually to get your feet above your head, but at this stage, if you can't do that, that's completely fine. Okay, for step two, you can see here we're going to start moving a lot more laterally and make a nice big V shape with our bodies. We're not going to be moving forwards anymore, and we're not exactly going to be moving laterally. We're going to be making a V shape that's going to help us little by little start moving in a straighter line. If you're struggling with this, then there's nothing wrong with keeping your legs bent or keeping them low to the ground. It's always good to experiment, so if you want, you can try to do this movement with your feet hovering above the floor. Okay, so after some dedicated practice, you should have a fairly good looking cartwheel. And right now we want to talk a little bit about our position. Take a look at my feet and where my hands are directed. This is the position that I need to do my cartwheel. My leading foot and my leading hand are going to be facing towards the direction I'm going, while my other arm is going to be facing up, and my other leg is going to be facing out to make an L shape. If you're still working on one of the earlier steps, then try to incorporate the stance that I was describing into your cartwheel progression. Another thing that's going to really make the difference is for you to kick the back leg up higher and higher each time until you get a cartwheel that looks straighter and straighter. If you don't have a lot of space, then that's actually perfect, because the next progression that we're going to be working on is cartwheels with our legs and knees to our chest and work in as small a space as we can. This progression is really great because it requires us to have a lot of control while doing our cartwheel. Our core has to be tight and engaged throughout the entire movement, and our goal is to make as little sound as humanly possible. Continuing on our AU fechado, we're going to do the movement now from a squat, and this can be either flat-footed or it can also be on your toes. It doesn't really matter. Yes, this movement is going to be a little bit more difficult because you're going to be starting from a mechanically disadvantaged position. If this feels a little uncomfortable on the knees, what you can do is start from a higher squat position and then lift off into your cartwheel. You can do ao fechado into the standing position, or you can also do it into another cocorinha, which will be the starting point for another ao. One of the hardest variations for ao fechado is to start the movement from negativa. You have one bent leg and one straight leg. Instead of having two legs to support yourself, you will have one to jump off from. The difficulty is of course harder, and the amount of power that you can generate is substantially less. This means that your kinetic chain will have to be a lot more coordinated for you to do the movement. It's definitely a more advanced skill, but it's a great challenge for you to try out. So let's take a quick break and talk a little bit about hand placement when it's on the floor. Being able to put one hand down at a time is actually a very, very important skill while doing your cartwheel. When we're beginners, it's very tempting to put both of our hands down onto the floor at the same time. And although this feels safer, it actually does restrict us from doing a lot of the more advanced cartwheel variations. If this is something that's difficult for you, I recommend going back to the very easiest cartwheel variation that you know, that I showed at the beginning of the video, and start putting one hand down, supporting yourself on that hand for just a little bit, and then putting that second hand down. This might be very difficult at first, but what I want you to try to focus on is increasing the amount of time that you spend on one hand by placing the first hand down, pausing, putting the second one down, and then quickly lifting up the first hand. So from here, what we can do is combine the elements that we talked about just now. One being ao fechado, and the other is being able to support ourselves on one hand at a time. This is of course pretty advanced, so take your time with it. So the last element that we want to include for ao fechado is going from this compact position with our knees to our chest into a handstand and then back into that compact ao fechado position. We're going to do this by doing a cartwheel onto the wall and having our butt and our feet touch the wall. After that, we're going to slide our legs up into a handstand position and then back down into that compact ao fechado position. After that, we can just get down off the wall as if to finish our cartwheel. So the end result is what we call ao CDO. It's a type of cartwheel that takes all the elements that we discussed in practice and takes it to its fullest expression, being able to balance on one hand, being able to start from various different positions, pushing up the legs from the ao fechado position, and last of all but not least is controlling your cartwheel. You should be able to do your cartwheel from many different positions in many different directions. Ao CDO is a very beautiful movement, it's a very cool movement, and it's also very difficult. It's something that you can strive to do. It's beautiful when you're playing capoeira, and I'm sure it's an awesome skill that you can add to your movement practice. The last kind of technique and style of cartwheel that we're going to be talking about is the off-center cartwheel, or ao trançado. Unlike a standard cartwheel that you would find in gymnastics or even in capoeira, you're not going to be moving in a straight line. Ao trançado starts out like a normal cartwheel, it's the same position. However, once you put the hand down and once you finish the cartwheel, you're going to be facing a completely different direction than you would while doing a normal cartwheel. So there it is, guys. Very easy drills that you can use to make your cartwheels go from absolute zero to absolutely beautiful. It takes time. Practice these things at home. It's not going to happen in one day, but you'll actually be very surprised at the progress you'll be able to make in a week or two. I've seen a lot of people who trained for 2 days come back the next day and all of a sudden they can do pretty decent cartwheels. You know, a lot of the time it has more to do with our fear up in our minds than really in our bodies. So in cartwheels, it's a little bit of this kind of case. So if you see that kind of improvement, that's awesome. Good for you. Keep at it. Make those cartwheels even more controlled, even more fluid. The more you can do it, the better. Try it out in these different positions that I've shown you and try out the exercise as much as you can. Let me know how you guys do. If you have any questions, make sure to post them down in the comments below. I'd love to get your guys' feedback and what you guys think about some of these exercises. I hope it works for you. Thanks everybody for watching. Thumbs up if you liked the video, subs if you loved it, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.